The Swedish Open just finished. And honestly, this is probably one of the most forgettable tournaments, but that does not mean we got some phenomenal disc golf and some very uncomfortable stuff to watch. So let's go over and figure out what you missed at the Swedish Open. And starting off with the MPO side, there are so many good names here that just did not show up, which is pretty shocking considering I think this is definitely a scoreable course for a lot of the US pros that have been traveling to Europe, but maybe it's a case of jet lag, it's hard to say. But just rattling off some names, Calvin at 44th, Eagle at 40th, Nicholas at 27th, James Conrad at 18th, newly sponsored Inva player Vinyl Makala at 21st. But speaking of some of those names, we have Eagle McMahon that looked to be already injured within his first European event of the year.
Fell down on the hillside.
And here's what he had to say. I definitely had a rough time this week, but fortunately I still shot over 1,000 every round and found cash. I'm still in the darkness searching for my game, but I feel like it's unraveling itself in glimpses. I need to be patient even though it is hard. And then he goes on to say that like the course is beautiful, amazing event, and I could not agree more. Before we get to the actual contenders, I just want to say how amazing of an event this truly was. If you look at this course, look at all the coverage, even Disc Golf Network, who infamously has so many issues with bitrate being terrible, the quality of the coverage dropping, and it just looking really bad. Even DGN had some of the best coverage I think I've ever seen of a disc golf tournament, and if you have not, be sure to watch the MDG coverage. They do some phenomenal post-round coverage, and it's probably some of the best quality disc golf you will ever see. But with that said, the actual live coverage was so good, and it was only heightened by how amazing this course truly is. Sure, we did not get the best quality of disc golfers this entire weekend, but we had great players there, even if they didn't play great, and some of the most insanely cool lines the entire way through this course, especially in the final round when it was raining. I honestly felt like this is the peak of disc golf. Sure, Eagles Crossing is pretty dope, but nothing can compare to how electric and cool this entire layout is. Feeling like a blend of like Portland and Smugglers. It all felt so cool. Every line felt like you had to earn it. And along that journey, you had some of the most pristine looking forestry that I've ever seen. And I felt like at times, honestly, this shouldn't even be a disc golf course. It should be preserved for better use than disc golf. So going into the contenders, it looked like we actually might get one of the smaller names to take down this event, with the lead card being Tuominen from Finland, a 16-year-old Roland Kaur from Estonia, and a Swede, Dennis Augustin. But ultimately in the final round, they just did not cut it, whether that be stress or weather, and every one of them did not get a podium finish, except for one member of the lead card, James Proctor. But before we get to him, let's talk about Paul McBeth. Honestly, nowadays, I don't expect a lot from Paul, and I think that is just a fair assessment to have. We have seen so many performances from Paul where it looks like he is doing decent, but then kind of falls short, and it never feels like he can string an entire tournament together. Besides the second place at Music City, the rest of his season has looked to be pretty meh. But while we did not get a ton of coverage from Paul, we got to see some amazing scores with a 9 under to start the entire event with a 1060 rating, but he really fell short in the second round with only a 4 under, missing a couple of putts and carding 4 bogeys. He ended up moving way back in the leaderboards with only a 4 under. But then we get to the final round where things get a little bit interesting, and that is because not only did Paul go even through the first 9 holes, which is like fine, whatever, but with that knowledge, he secured almost a perfect back 9. And you may be thinking, oh yeah, I bet it's like an easier back 9. That is very much not the case, with most people maybe going 5 under on the back 9, but definitely not going 8 under on the back 9. So after a phenomenal finish and getting some great drives and getting some great putts, that puts him at 21 under, which looked to be a pretty solid second place score, except for 2 other names that I have not mentioned yet. That is Mauri Villman and Joey Buckets. For whatever reason, Joey Buckets has been lighting it up this year, and I thought he was on a bit of a cold stretch, but that is very much not the case anymore, with an electric final round of 9 under, but in a very different manner than Paul. He cards way more birdies on the front 9, and even goes out of bounds twice, but still manages to not get a single bogey the entire final round. But I would say the biggest thing apart from his phenomenal play this weekend was just how confident he looked the entire way through. I filmed him a bit at Champions Cup, and it seemed like his confidence wasn't quite at that level. But watching him throw at the Swedish Open, it looks to be like his confidence is on full blast, and he just has such a strong ability to execute on very tight lines. And what's crazy is that he led the entire field tee to green at nearly 15 strokes. And I would say the only pitfall of his entire tournament was C2 putting. But with that said, the majority of these putts may have been pinched off looks, so it's hard to say it was a huge pitfall, but at 13% missing 13 C2 putts, that is certainly not going to cut it when you are trying to nail down a win, but still such a great finish. He also finishes tied for second place. But the last person before we get to the winner, Mauri Villman. And if you remember the Copenhagen Open, he was shredding it, and it seems like he has not let up one bit, with a 96% C1 percentage the entire weekend, only missing 1 putt. And I would say the trend of his entire entire game is just consistency. I don't think there's anything that looks remarkably insane, but his ability to not make mistakes and just jam in circle 1 putts is what allows him to be so good on tour. And that was definitely displayed this entire weekend. With way fewer birdies than the winner, he manages to be right there because he makes so few mistakes and manages to only bogey 4 holes the entire weekend, which allowed him to also tie everyone else with 21 under at 2nd place. But let's just get to the winner. Good old James Proctor finally secures his first Elite Series win, and I could not be more stoked for him. We have been waiting for this moment for so long. I thought there was going to be so many events where he was going to take it down, but for whatever reason he falls short. Now he's officially an Elite Series champion. And sure, you could give some asterisks to this event, and honestly you should, but that does not mean he is not an Elite Series champ. With a phenomenal round 1 and 2, he had such a strong lead against everybody else, and sure, there was some lucky lines along the way that led to this moment, but all in all, his biggest thing that set him apart from everybody else was his putting. Every single putt was so dialed in, so confident, and it was some point early in the round he missed like a 40-footer and was like pissed off about it. That's how you know he is super locked in. So he concludes the entire event with a 94% C1 percentage, missing only 2 putts the entire weekend. But the major stat that nobody in contention was touching is his C2 percentage, making 9 of 16 circle 2 putts, making it not even really a battle in the final round. But really the only mistake the entire final round was a missed putt on hole 6 and a bogey on hole 10. The rest was just great disc golf the entire way through, and there are so many tight lines on this course in particular that it really feels like if you're not dialed in, it can get very ugly very quick. And everyone else in contention had 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 OBs the entire weekend, while James Proctor only had 1. And let me remind you who is here. We have Paul, we have Ricky, we have Calvin, we have Nicholas, and a bunch of European players who have been dominating the European Tour. So being able to so confidently show how good you are at these lines, hitting all of your tan putts, it really shows how good James Proctor is at this moment in time.
I mean, I've seen so many people win, and I've always kind of wondered what that would feel like. Sometimes it felt possible, other times it didn't, but it's been a long journey. I've been playing disc golf since 2000, 2001. So jumping on the Pro Tour and battling the best, it feels amazing.
And oh yeah, if you forgot, he literally just got married. So he's had so many things lined up. So going from wedding prep to the European Tour prep and then winning the event, it is so cool, so electric. I'm so excited for him. And oh yeah, I forgot to mention this, but he had a crazy stat of 11.19 strokes gained putting.
McBeth at 69.
I just told myself, you got to will this one in there. Whatever you have, just will it in there.
This man is unbelievable. This is what athletes live for. This is the moment.
So with that, let's get on to FPO. And if you are waiting for why I titled this is uncomfortable to watch, it is this. Now, all in all, this is basically like a normal European showdown, like you would normally expect, with the exception of one player who I most certainly will butcher the name of, Maria LD Christina Dotor, and even the broadcast butchered it, so I feel like I'm okay in that regard.
She's come here to play.
And update, she did not come here to play, with a 3 over to finish that round, but no hate on her, she finished with a 1004 rated first round, which is 100 points higher than her rating. Absolutely insane. And I think this might be the first time I'm saying it, but she is an Icelandic disc golfer. But besides Ella, it was really a 2-horse race between Henna and Silva. And going into the final round, they were actually tied. And if you had to make a bet between Silva and Henna starting tied in the final round, I bet you're probably going to pick Silva, because Henna is still having so many weird battles with stress, confidence, putting. Even though her drives have been phenomenal, it is really all about putting. And that is basically exactly what happened with this final round. And let me remind you what happened round 2 for Henna. She finished 7 under on this course with a 1022 rated round, so she definitely has the capability to do very well on this course, but for whatever reason, the final round is where she just seems to crumble. But Henna clearly had the capability to do very well in this final round. Now I will say the conditions were not great. It was rainy the entire duration, and I do not think Henna plays well, especially in the final round with weather conditions being not the best. But again, just referencing the second round, she went 7 for 9 for circle 1 and hit 15 out of 18 fairways. Now we compare that to the final round, only making 11 out of 18 fairway hits and going 6 for 12 on circle 1, and also missing all of her circle 2 putts. Now that is definitely not to say that Henna's round was bad, but it really goes to show that she has so much potential if she can just figure out what is going on with her mental game and putting. And basically the entire final round, whenever Henna was putting, it was stressful. There was almost never a putt that I felt like there was just a lot of confidence. It was always stress. And even though she was 2 under through 15 holes, she follows that up with back-to-back bogeys, finishing at even. And that is clearly not going to get you the win, especially especially when the Finnish Dementor is just looking to capture souls. And I do not mean for this to be derogatory, but Silva really does show zero emotion the entire time she's playing. And I think that is what allowed her to play so well in this final round. She looked confident the entire way through, and that led to so many good confident putts that looked to be dead center. And a crazy example of this is a par save on 16, where she manages to jam in a 52-footer in round 1 and then follows that up with a 55-footer in round 2. Having that ability to drain a long putt for a par save is just not something that Henna really has at this point in time in her game. So Silva continuing to have that confidence is really what catapulted her to finish with a 5-stroke lead against Henna. And yes, you heard that right, she finishes with 5 strokes over Henna, securing her second Elite Series win of the year and making it her 5th win on tour this year, including 3 Silver Series. And I think so much of this final round, where it is raining, pouring, there's so many conditions that do not seem good for disc golf, having that ability to stay calm, stay focused, jam in your putt, go back onto your umbrella and move on is one of the best skill sets that Silva has in her tool belt that it seems like nobody else has besides Kristen. And another thing that I noticed in her game is that she's actually able to get a lot of smooth distance. I used to think that her form was amazing for accuracy, but not really distance. Now that I see her drives, I think she definitely has pro level distance, and that is able to give her a lot more birdie chances than I thought before. So having the ability to have amazing drives, great upshots, and being able to make 55 footers is truly something that nobody else has in the division until Kristen comes back, of course. But that is super cool, and I really hope that we get to see more of this at the European Open, because a Silva versus Kristen battle would be so fun to watch. So with that, I really hope that Henna does kind of figure out what's going on with her putting, because she is such a good player. It just does not seem to be clicking in the moments where it needs to be clicking, but that is just the way it goes sometimes for disc golf. So with that, what do you guys think about this entire event? Did you love the course as much as I did? And what did you make of all the US MPO players that just did not perform well? I would love to know what you guys think. And also, what do you think about Paul kind of showing up, getting second place? Definitely seems to me like he is all over the place, but it is still so much fun to watch him play. Be sure to subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching. I've gotten so much good feedback the last couple of weeks, and I really appreciate it. So with that, Wild Runs signing out. Peace.